Okay, so I took a minute and I went and found a better map, one that I thought looked better. And so I just did the same thing as before. I just clicked on this. I went to HDRI environment. I went and found, I went and found where I put my image and I pulled it in. Ooh, that one's kind of nice. I wonder what that one would do. Okay, I'm not going to mess with it right now because it looks okay. Okay, so I got my image, said open, and it attached it, and then, whoops, I accidentally just picked something else on accident. You get to see me do this all over again. HRI field. Okay, open. And you see, and then I rendered this out, and you can see, because I just downloaded it out of the images in the background, it's not the best quality. But I'm going to show you how to fix that after we get done with materials, okay, so that you can do better ones. Or you can go to a website that has what you need, sign up at that website, and then download a high quality image so that you have a higher quality image. Okay, I'm actually okay with this because I'm going to blur it out to create a depth of field, and I'll show you how to do that. But I'm going to show you how to do materials first. So just to show you, just what kind of starts to happen as you put in this background. From before, we had a very, very different image. So already just by putting this in, because of global lighting now that's being applied, and we don't have exposure control, but we can use exposure control, it changes the overall look of what we had. When we had with the black background, which is very flat. And so now it has made some adjustments to the lighting, and we can control that even further. But the reason I'm showing you this first instead of later, when all the pieces come together, is because if you put your background in first, it then allows you, as you're working with your lights and your materials, to see what's going to happen, so that you don't later put in your background and then all your lights and materials are now have to be adjusted because the background changed it. Okay, so the background, putting in that background changed the rendering. It looks great. I mean, that just on and of itself is not bad. It's a good starting place. But before, we had a very shiny caterpillar and things were different. And so we've now put in our environment map. Okay, you can control your global lighting level, and this is very sensitive. So if I take this up just by a little, you can already start to see over here how much brighter it becomes just by increasing it a small amount. So if you work with that global lighting level at all, know that it is sensitive. Okay. You can also change the color. So in this case, I have a morning sky. And if I want to change the overall color to be more like morning, I'm going to add in a little bit of blue-gray overall to my scene, because the overall morning light is going to tint my scene in this slight blue-gray feeling. And so by adding that tint in, adding that global tint, it now feels like more realistic, that it's now set more towards what a morning overall general light would do. If I'm in the middle of the day, I would leave it at white. And if I'm taking a shot around sunset, I'm going to change that to be a more orangey or yellowish tone. Okay, so this gives me more of a morning feel. The sun is slowly starting to come up. It's got that nice alpenglow on the clouds. It hasn't hit my subject yet. And that in and of itself may be enough for my animation. We do have something else down here that's exposure control. And if I set this to automatic, I can control weather, or I can control a whole bunch of different other parameters down here. And we'll get to effects later. So this starts to allow me to make changes. Now let's take a look at what that does just by doing automatic exposure control. And so really it didn't do much different in this case. It looks pretty much the same. It hasn't done a whole lot. Sometimes it makes a big difference, sometimes it doesn't. And then we have other ones that can do some really crazy things like pseudo color exposure control. But that's more advanced, and you don't want to start messing with that until you have, okay, and it just created that, which really is crazy. You really don't want to start getting into those advanced features. They're there, but we're not going to cover them in this class because we just want to work with the basics. Okay, so for the most part, I work with automatic or no exposure control as my default. Okay, okay, we'll leave that at that. And that for now is all we want to do in working with our environment map. I'm going to show you after we've covered materials how to raise or lower this, make adjustments to it, because it may not fall in correctly where you want it to. In this case it does because it's an HDR map, but for now we're in pretty good shape. Okay, so we're going to end this here and talk next about lights.